satellites. A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku. I'm Milo.
I'm Sean.
Actually, let's keep talking about the Substack studio, like this idea of podcasting. Well, first of all, yeah, like I had gone to this AZPM, which is Arizona Public Media, and they have this $65 million new building that it's empty, but they're about to move into it. Yeah. And it has like 10 podcasting studios that were built from scratch to be podcasting studios. Like they have tables with mics, and they have these, even have this kind of rail that runs around the side of the building at waist height that you could like mount other arms and lights and things on. It's super high tech. It's built a room within a building. So it floats within like a gravel floor with like springs, and like nothing touches anything. Yeah. So like when someone slams the door in another room, like not even a tiny bit of
the
sound
vibration doesn't pass through. Wow.
Yeah. It was impressive, and made me sort of feel like, I mean, podcasting can be anything. Like it's like blogging or something. You know, you could like go to a war zone and like report back with your blog, or you could like
like I personally don't mind if, you know, like if I had the windows open and you know, a delivery truck drove by, like it's all part of the it gives it flavor, right? It gives it a little I mean, you know, if you were trying to make a perfect recording and you wanted a delivery truck noise, you would add that in, right?
Right.
And you would mix it in, but you know,
I don't like it when I slurp. Like if I slurp from my coffee cup, I'm always like,
slurping might be might be too vivid.
It's too close to, you know, no one really wants to hear someone else slurp.
I sometimes think of like these kind of conversations about like trying to get to that perfect, you know, the mission that some people have to get to like the perfect audio or something like that. It makes me think of like real audiophiles that spend, you know, so much on their headphones, or like especially if it's in like a car or like your traveling headphones or something, right? Like if you are that focused on your car sound system is always going to have, you're always going to have noise of the road and you know, whatever, you're never going to get perfect audio in your car.
Right. That's true.
Or on your, you know, you could get the most high-end earbuds, but you're still going to be outside using them and you're going to have all kinds of other shit leaking into your ears, right? All kinds of other sounds. So it's, you know, there's just certain areas, certain contexts where you're never going to get perfect audio. So it's kind of like just surrender those areas.
You know, it's funny because when we were teenagers, when we were in you know, I would mow lawns in the summer to save up money to buy these ultra expensive speakers. Do you remember you had some?
Oh yeah,
I
had
Kefs.
Yeah, I used to sit between them like the.
Yours were really nice Kefs.
And I would play.
They were black,
you know,
like Darth Vader kind of.
There were certain records I would play, and they were just like. I remember Talking Heads. Right, like burning down the house, and I'd sit between my speakers.
What's so funny is that,
and I'd let it just fill my whole physical body. Yeah.
Thinking back to the 80s, like this, do you remember Hot Tub Time Machine? This is like Hot Tub Time Machine of podcasts. But look, do you remember the boombox? Like the boombox and the Sony Walkman changed where music could be played. Like used to have to be, you had a record player in your living room.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And speakers maybe, you know, but then the boombox, and they were like pretty crappy, you would lower the quality of the sound a lot to get it portable. You know what I mean? Because they were like cheap speakers, and they were kind of
and you had like the little foam headphones and whatever, right?
Yeah,
like with the Walkman, right? Or with the boombox, it had, you know, just
but people could bring it to the beach. People could bring, and my thought is that I feel like this whole generation, no one really plays music. I mean, we sometimes play it while we're cooking in the kitchen. We have like a Harman Kardon, like a single thing. It's not great, but we'll play music while we're cooking to share. But the rest of the time, like it's almost like, why are you sharing your music? Like when people listen to music in public, it almost feels kind of like, thanks for sharing. Like I didn't, you know.
For sure, on the city buses here, listening to music out of your cell phone speaker.
Yeah, why
so everyone else can hear it out of like your cell phone speaker. That to me is Yeah, that's peak.
But it's true that in the
honestly,
80s, there was a different culture around it, and you sat in your room, in your bedroom.
There's also like a racial thing to it, because like the gentrification thing. Like one of the complaints about white gentrification is that white people want everything quiet. Right?
Interesting. Yeah,
and so they move into a neighborhood and they complain about noise, and
right.
and so like that's like an age-old sort of white gentrification complaint, is that what the fuck's up with white people where they want everything quiet, and so they move into a neighborhood and they don't want the party happening on the sidewalk, right? And there's sort of a killjoy white gentrification thing, and so part of it might be that we're talking about.
So I moved into this barrio neighborhood 29 years ago or something, 1996. So 30 years ago. And you came over to visit with Larry. And we went up to the park to throw like the frisbee or play hacky sack. And this like junkyard dog from the neighborhood came and bit Larry on the back, like just straight up, right? And I remember saying to my neighbor, who was Pedro, who was this guy who was, he really wasn't he hated the gentrification, right? So he was like, gringos, go home, And he goes, we were talking about the dog attack, and he goes, yeah, well, the thing is, Mexican Americans in the neighborhood, we think that gringos are crazy because they walk their dog on a leash. And we just open the door and we're like, see you later, come back when you need to, when you want some more food. And so he was like, we think
and you kind of just hope your dog comes back.
And
doesn't just roll with the local pack.
Well, he said
for the rest of its life.
What happens is the gringos start calling it in, and then the dog catcher comes and they say kidnaps my dog because the dog's running around without a collar, without tags. And so, like in this case, Larry was bitten, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this ferocious dog! It just came up and bit Larry on the back." And he goes, "Yeah, we just are like, dogs need to figure it out." They just like, we let our dogs just figure it out. And like some of them don't have an eye, like it's
right.
It's like there's a different, it's like a culture clash is what you're describing, this culture clash thing in the neighborhood. But so our big gripe was that
I do think like if you're gonna play your music on the bus or whatever, like I'd definitely appreciate like a boombox more than just blasting it over your little iPhone.
Yeah, that's painful. I mean, it's true.
It happens all the time. I always envision this scene unfolding. Like it would be like a Dave Chappelle show type scene where somebody is on the bus blasting their music out of their phone. Like whenever I'm on the bus and some teenagers like blasting their music out of their phone, I want to just do the same thing on my phone with different music. And what I in my fantasy like little scene in my mind's eye is that it will start this whole sort of like chain of people, and eventually you'll have, because it will just go into absurdity really fast. As soon as like the third person and the fourth person start blasting different music, like it'll be like it would be like a sort of avant-garde version of an orchestra tuning up. That's that. But just
sort of
but it would be the comedy, because it would just be like, like every person from every walk of life just deciding in that moment, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, this one person starts blasting New Order, and another person, is like Leo Kottke, right?
Right. Yeah. But back to your kefs, man, because I was jealous of your kefs. For some reason I invested in acoustic research. These were AR speakers. They were supposed to be really flat. And like I went to SoundX and the guy sold them to me, and they were like, I don't know, they were like, I think they were $200 a piece, which was a lot back then. And they were like a $400 set of speakers was considered like a step up from a boombox, obviously. But there were people who invested in a lot more high-end equipment. And we would go to their houses and
But you're right, like that's what we would save our money for. Like that and CDs.
Yeah, CDs was a big thing. It was very expensive.
Yeah, like you would go to the CD store and
Do you remember those clubs?
I mean, I think there's a pleasure in that. I sometimes think there's that's one of the lost pleasures that, doesn't exist today.
Browsing.
Like we were limited and constrained on our music for sure, but there's sort of a beauty in that constraint, because you'd go to the store with your money and you'd be like, I have money enough to, like, I'm you budget yourself like a CD, right? Like you could maybe buy more, but you're like, I'm going to buy one. Mm-hmm. And then you have to choose what you're going to buy with that money. And you maybe you walked into the store with a plan, like, oh, I'm going to get, whatever. And then you start looking around and there's stuff on display and it's like, oh, they have a new album, or it's just like that an album cover of a band you never heard of catches your eye, and you're just like, you know what I mean? Deal. And then you start talking to it's like, what's the movie in the book with John Cusack, like where he works in the record store. Yeah. And, you start talking to because the record store people, like they were all cool. They're knowledgeable, right? Yeah. Like the video store guy was always, always had opinions, right? Like, there was a great store in Phoenix. I think it's still there. It's called Stinkweeds.
Oh, okay.
And Kimber was the owner, this woman, Kimber. And
Stinkweeds.
Yeah. It's called Stinkweeds because I think I said this on the podcast before, but the Arizona Republic newspaper, the music critic of the paper.
Yeah.
When he would give his reviews, and if his worst review of a band or an album or whatever, his worst review was like he had stars or whatever his icon was for reviews. The worst, like if you were 0 stars, it was Stinkweeds.
Ooh.
And so her whole mission was like, my record store is going to be the shit that guy hates.
Right, totally. I also remember.
So it was edgy, and she was really cool and super knowledgeable. And she introduced me to so much music when I lived in Tempe.
Think about how like the first, like my mom was the church organist. So we grew up singing in the choir and playing my mom played classical music. And I thought that's what people should do, right? And I remember my sister came home with K-Tel Records top hits.
Oh yeah.
And it had
those ones they'd show on TV, like
and it had like a mix. It had like the top 10, So there was Blondie.
K-Tel was the ones they would do like an infomercial, and it was like call this 800 number and get the K-Tel, whatever.
Blondie, Heart of Glass was on there, and I just when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I listened to it over and over again. She was definitely a celebrity
crush back then of mine, yeah.
Totally. And then there was the one,
or Debbie Harry, yeah.
Which is the band that was, oh mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. Do you remember that one?
I don't know.
Hangman is coming down. The gig is up. The beat is out. Finally.
Oh, right.
I think it was Styx. Was it Styx? Styx?
I think it was Styx, yeah. I was into Styx. I don't know
why
Renegade.
It's called The Renegade.
Oh, The Renegade.
That was my favorite Styx song for a long time. Like I just sat there spitting. I would get good at picking the needle up and putting it back on the song, like hitting replay. Because you had to.
Oh, yeah. That was another thing. Like we were listening to something in the car. I don't remember what song it was, but the end of the song was the sound of like the needle at the end of the record going, right? And I asked my kids, like, do you know what that sound is? And if they had no idea, right? Yeah.
I've actually.
No, I mean, I think though that's a whole like the whole sort of experience of music, like unboxing a new album or whatever. Like all of that was such a pleasure back then, and that's all gone. Sadly.
I remember it both being torn. Like I appreciated that the CD was supposed to last longer as long as you didn't scratch it. But I also, the packaging of the LP was so much nicer. Like it oftentimes was just
But even the CDs were pretty nice. But yeah, I agree. There was a downgrade to the
this little tiny book was 5 by 5 inches versus.
Right, partly because it was just smaller. So like the album artwork didn't have as much of a canvas.
Right. So from
like that, yeah.
And when I later on I did about 30 CD sort of booklets for people. And I remember just bemoaning the fact that I didn't have very much room to work with. Like 5 inches is not a lot of space. 5 by 5.
Yeah.
It's almost like a postcard.
Do you remember the CD cover meme? There was a meme on the internet, like in the early days of the internet. And I used to love it. I used to love doing it. Basically, it was just like the steps were like, go to Flickr. Remember Flickr? It was like the photo website. Yeah. I think it still exists. But anyways, go to Flickr. They had this explore button, and it would just from their catalog of photos or database of photos, it would just create a page of, random stuff just to discover people, right? And so it was like, go to Flickr, hit explore, pick the 7th picture. All right, then go to Wikipedia, hit random article, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
title of that article is your band.
Right, yeah.
And then it was like, then there was one other way to find the name of the album, right? Like it was that kind of thing. And so then you had to basically use like your design tools to put that photo together with the band name, picking fonts and colors and, tweaking it in Photoshop and whatever, like cropping it the right way and creating a composition out of it and just like creating an album cover for that fictional band. And I loved doing that so much. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time. But what's funny about, go back to your kefs, because you described sitting between them.
you keep
and I think it's just, it's just so funny because
you want to go, sorry, I keep interrupting you. You want to say something about the kefs.
All I wanted to say is that you're sitting between them and it's almost like having the largest set of headphones you could possibly buy. And you can't move around. You have to like sit in between.
But it's better than that because the vibrations are going into your body, like
through the floor,
from head to butt, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Like,
and then your sister,
not just through the floor, but through the air, like into your body. Like if you're wearing headphones, no matter how good it are, it's just going into your ears, right? Like, but no, I sat between them and my body was soaking up the whole vibration.
Right.
I mean, of course I was hearing it as well, but yeah.
And the other sort of odd thing that happened, sort of side effect of that, was that you had a lot of like sisters and brothers knocking on the door, like, shut up, turn that down, because your parents could be like, hey, turn it down. And you wanted, when sometimes my parents like were away for the weekend, I would just crank the radio and my neighbors were probably like, what the hell? Because like you're sharing it with everyone because you want it to be so loud.
Totally.
It's so interesting.
I used to have a sound effects CD, and one of the sound effects was a plane it was either a plane landing or a plane taking off. And so, but it was about 5 or 6 minutes long. And so it started out with like just nature sounds, like you're sitting imagine you're sitting at the end of the runway, on an island and you're hearing like birds and wind and the ocean or whatever. And it's this peaceful kind of, and then in the background, in the distance, you start to hear, I think it was a plane landing. You start to hear a plane approaching and it's getting gradually louder and louder over minutes and minutes. And then, I remember the first time I listened to that with the speakers next to me and I had them cranked way up. And by the time the plane flew, it was like a real plane flying over, like a real, airliner. And I like sprung up to turn it down because it was like house shaking loud.
Right.
Like a real plane.
There was always the fear that you would blow your speakers too. Like
I had no idea that it was going to get that loud. Yeah. I have to issue a quick correction or clarification from a thing I said a few weeks ago. And one of my friends we were chatting about it. We're talking about the theater days. And so I have a friend, and she listens. So, hey, Greer. And we were talking about this guy who ran the theater company that we were part of and how prolific he was. And he would just crank out plays. And he would crank out good plays like effortlessly. I've still never known anybody who could crank out material that effortlessly. And there was another guy in the theater company, his good friend, who ended up getting a writer gig in Hollywood. And at the time, like the gig he got was something that I was just unimpressed with. And I don't know, there was something that sort of stuck in my craw about it. Like, why is he getting this gig and not, the guy who writes these plays, who cranks out plays? And I think I minimized the second person's work. Like he did really great work. And I think I was bothered by, it was the job he got, funnily enough, was writing the Power Rangers. So the Power Rangers at that time was a Japanese series that was, had Japanese stories on top of it. And so his job was just to basically write a new story or adapt the story that was, because he didn't speak Japanese, right? So they'd get the footage and then you'd have to come up with a story that goes on top of it's probably the same story or something similar to what it was in Japanese, but that's not how they were writing it. They were just creating a new story by watching what was happening. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. But anyway, so I think at the time I was just like, fuck, like that's the kind of thing that gets rewarded and people get paid for. And meanwhile, this guy's just like, you know, our friend is languishing in this tiny theater company, even though he's so talented. You know, there was more to that. Like the guy, the guy who could crank out the plays, like he had some demons, man. Like he had some dark demons in his closet and just was not a very good guy in certain ways.
The
but
guy
this
that
other dude
could crank out the plays
was just not a great guy in some ways. But the other guy who went to Hollywood with the writer gig, he was just he was just a really sweet guy with a lot of integrity and talent as well. And, you know, I think he's gone on to have more gigs and better gigs. But, yeah, so I think I used them as a contrast in a previous episode where I was talking about like talent, and I was sort of framing it as one of them was talented. The truth is they're both talented. It was more about what the world rewards that bothered me at the time.
No, it's an interesting,
and it is true. Like that, the guy who ran the theater company, he was uniquely prolific. Like it wasn't just talent. Like he did have something. I've never known anybody since then or since who could just crank out. Like we would have a play, you know, we would finish the run of a play and there would be a plan to have the new play starting rehearsals, right? And you know, somebody, maybe me, would be like, he'd be like, oh, you know, Sean, is your play, you know, you said you were working on something. Is it ready to start rehearsals next week or whatever? And, you know, I'd say, oh shit, you know, and sometimes I could finish something or whatever, or there'd be somebody else in the theater company we were all writing at the time. But if like one of us was like, oh no, man, like it you know, that one petered out, or I'm not going to be ready. He'd be like, okay. And he'd be like, I guess I'll write something. And he'd go home like that weekend. And like by Monday morning,
wow.
Like he'd go home and, you know, he'd have one day to work on it. Monday morning, he'd come in with a, you know, complete script for a new play that was 70 pages long. And
wow.
It was crazy. Like I've never known he could do that in 2 days, one or 2 or 3 days.
Was he using some kind of like a template? Like was he sort of just a little bit, or was he exploring a lot of different
tons of different ideas? It would be completely out of, you know, completely unique and nothing like you'd seen.
Wow.
It would be, you know, like you know, one day he wrote a play called Baghdad Hotel that was just like, the premise of it was reporters stuck in a hotel in Baghdad on the eve of the first bombing of the first Gulf War, right? And so it was just like all these reporters, you know, and so there was like, he had this knack of like having a macro story that was compelling and a interpersonal stories that were compelling. So it was like, against the backdrop of the Iraq War, he's exploring issues of conflict and overseas, you know, adventurism and stuff. And then at the same time, he has these reporters who are, you know, whatever, falling in love or having affairs and things like that, whatever. So, yeah, at the time I was just kind of in awe of how he could do that. But I don't want to minimize the other guy, which I think I did last time.
Appreciate the correction. And I'm sure in that community, like it's nice to mention that and remind people. I wanted to bring up I was blown away back over the holidays. I read my younger cousin, Aram Yardumian's new book. Mm-hmm. And what blew me away was, first of all, I didn't know he was a fiction writer. I mean, he got a PhD in archaeology and anthropology. And we used to tease him that he was like the Indiana Jones of our small town, because every summer he would go to the Balkans and like do this sort of work where you know, take cheek swabs from thousands of people and stuff and like look at their genetic lineage. And anyway, so he wrote this book, and he's half Armenian. His dad was Armenian, and he's traveled there a bunch. But it was like, it just flowed out. Like he was like having this character traveling back, who was a photographer who was investigating like a murder mystery inside of you know. And I was just like, oh, where does all this come from? Like, first it was in this really interesting style. He had like very unique style, kind of almost Arundhati Roy meets Gabriel Garcia Marquez with a little bit of Ernest Hemingway thrown in, if you know what I mean. Like there was like a kind of a efficiency, a haiku like efficiency to the lines, but it was also a lot of kind of, there was a lot of, what's that called, magical realism.
Yeah.
And then there was, the reason it was Gabriel Garcia Marquez was because, like 100 Years of Solitude, it starts with a guy standing in the front of a firing squad. And then that's the frame. And then he rolls back and tells the story of how that son or grandson got there. Like, and then you go back through the ages, and so he used a similar kind of thing. And he said, "Oh, I've never read 100 Years of Solitude." So that's interesting that people keep comparing my book to this other book. But I was A, blown away. B, I think everyone should read it. C, it's based on a true event that happened in 1996 in Armenia. And so it tries to kind of explain maybe this mysterious assassination from, like, it sort of rolls back the clock 6 months before and then tries to sort of fill in all the blanks because no one really knows what happened, So it's kind of, it's just fascinating. And it was like, I knew, like, I've taken creative writing courses, and I feel like I can pour out like imagery, but I have no structure, and I can't develop characters, and I don't have like dialogue, like an ability to. I don't know. I've never actually tried. Like, I'm just not drawn to doing that. So when I hear you talk about this play,
like, everybody has their thing, right? Like Cormac McCarthy famously just never has interior monologues, right? You never have a character in like, his books are brilliant and amazing, but like, I read somebody's observation that he doesn't do internal dialogue or internal monologue at all. Like, you never hear what a character thinks.
Interesting.
Or feels about something. It's like, it's only what they do and say. And
which is kind of screenplay.
And I like that when I went back and was reading more of his stuff, I was like, that's really super interesting. And then you think, like, how can a book be successful without that, right? Because then you read another book and it's so full of like really truthful feeling interior, an interior world of the characters. It's so truthful and insightful. Like Mishima or something like that will do stuff that it's just like, it feels so profoundly truthful, like what is going on in the heads of these people, and how people don't he creates these like tension between what people think and what they do, because we are often acting in dishonest ways in the world or we don't even know what we're thinking sometimes. Like, we're hiding our own thoughts from ourselves, right? And he's such a master of that. And you think, like, how can Cormac McCarthy be so successful not including any of that at all? But they are, right? And then there's other writers who are really good at dialogue. And then there's writers who there's almost like not a line of dialogue in the whole book because they're just not good at it. And so, like, I think you find your thing that you feel good, that you're good at.
I mean, certainly at this point in my sort of artistic creative career, I have to notice there's things that I enjoy just fooling around with. And like that sort of, that idea of stumbling and recovery, like that idea of like accidentally coming across something and then using it as a collaborative input to make a new thing. And that's like my thing. And the thing interestingly thing about dialogue is it seems like it should be the easiest thing in the world to do because we all talk all the time to people,
Yeah. You think, right. Same. Well, it's kind of like that frustrating thing when you're trying to draw, like, which we can all probably relate to it even as our youngest days. Cause like in your mind's eye, you can see the thing you're trying to draw.
Yeah. And it's frustrating
and so you
when
go,
you can't.
Like, why can't I get that onto the paper? Like its head is like the head of that thing. Like, I know what a horse looks like, or I know what a tiger looks like. I can picture it so vividly in my head, but my hand can't make it on this paper. And it's like, there's this really mysterious gap between what you can see in your mind and what you can do with your pencil. It's weird. It's super weird that gap exists because
the
you feel like
way to draw.
If you can see it in your head, like your brain it's the same. You have the same thing at the end, your finger with the pencil is just another node. Your eyeballs were a node on that brain.
Yeah. I think I remember asking my uncle Nishan who was
Yeah.
Aram's dad, who was a really great portrait painter and had gone to
Yeah,
Fordham
I took
school.
lessons with him for a
You
long
did. You
time.
did. I was
Yeah.
jealous of people that
Yeah.
took lessons with him. You and Kurt Rosenquist.
Well, not for a long time, but for a period of time. Yeah.
You and Kurt Rosenquist were identified as like talented, so that you were given lessons with Nishan. and I think they had me go up to his studio once, and I wanted to draw the roots of trees. And so we sat there together drawing the roots of trees, and mine just was like this really sort of tangled little thing. And then his was like this vast, three-dimensional.
But like, think about that's such a great example of exactly what we're talking about, because being able to draw something realistically, like I look behind you and look behind me. We have your painting there and your painting there, right? And nobody else does that work like that, right? Like, and there's almost something limiting to being able to reproduce something. Like Picasso famously could draw effortlessly, could just produce realistic drawings, like, and it was so boring to him and constraining, right? And that's why Picasso, in a way, became what he became, because like he mastered that at such a young age. But some people master that, and then it's like it's boring and they never go anywhere with it because that's what they can do. And it's like, what's the point? And maybe it's because that wasn't your wheelhouse, that you were like, well, what if I played around with colors? And what if I played around with media, different materials? And what if I layered it in this way? And it's like, you found a different thing that worked and is super interesting and produces beautiful work, right? So it's like, it's your version of not being able to do dialogue or whatever in this, like the painting and drawing equivalent of that.
That's interesting.
Or like, I think Scott Glenn, the actor, he he's from Bernathen, right? And he said that he got into acting because he wanted to be a writer, and he sucked at dialogue. And he thought to him, he had this idea that if I'm on stage and I'm doing dialogue, like I'll get better at writing dialogue. And of course, what happened was he became an actor.
It's funny. I met my second or first cousin once removed. This woman who's in Toronto this summer, and she's a playwright. And so somehow we were talking about and I said, so what are you or something like, are you afraid to get up on stage and act? And she goes, no, I don't act. And I was like, oh, I thought everyone who wrote a play had to act. Like, I just sort of assumed that everyone who was a playwright was also sometimes an actor, or at least studied it in school or something, And she goes, no, I can't get up on stage at all. And I was like, that's fascinating. Like, to maybe imagine the actors on stage, like saying the lines, but not actually doing it yourself.
Well, at the theater company, we had a rule at the Unlikely where if you wrote the play, you couldn't direct your own play.
Couldn't direct your own play.
Because you had writer directors were so difficult because they had such a rigid vision of what their play was supposed to sound like and look like.
That's a really interesting rule.
And so you ended up doing, because one of our other rules was, as a director, you couldn't do line readings, which means you couldn't say it like this, say it more like this, and then recite how you want the actor to say it. Like, as a director, we were saying there was off limits. Like it's, if you can't get the actors to do what works, and you fall back on telling them how to say the thing, then that's just lazy bad directing, and you shouldn't be directing. So no line readings, and it was almost impossible to avoid line readings if you were directing your own play, because you wrote it and you heard the lines in your head as these characters are speaking to each other. You hear it, right?
Yeah. And
then the actors on stage are emphasizing a different word or something, and you're just like, fuck, that's not what it's supposed to sound like. You're missing the point of that exchange, right? Like, yeah. So,
oh wow, I had this really awkward experience. This reminds me just because of directors, actors, and so I was shooting this video for Roche. My friend was in charge of this cervical cancer testing portfolio of tests, like this. And one of them was for HPV, the virus HPV.
Okay. Yeah.
So and the standard of care is the Pap Smear, which doesn't look for viral things. It just looks for weird cells.
They should rename that.
Pap Smear. Yeah, it's a terrible
It's
name.
never.
Right?
It's just nothing
It's
with
old,
the
though.
word
It's like 87
smear
years
in
old.
it should be
Yeah.
part of a thing that we have to
Especially
do.
if, like, a male pathologist orders one for a woman. It's like,
Just-
I'm going to do a Pap Smear. It just,
How did that name survive this long?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I don't know what pap is, and the act of smearing it just it's gross.
Yeah, it just sounds terrible. And the whole idea.
Anyway, sorry, that's just a little side note, but yeah.
Anyway, so
little pitch to the medical community to like, get branding people on that one.
So this was really fun for me, and like we were never really allowed to run. We were never allowed to run our own ads, so I don't know if anyone ever ran it. But I would sit here, and I'd be in a meeting, and someone would say, "This year we're going to quote unquote beat up on the PAP because we want people to start using the HPV test, which is a viral test, right?" And it's much more accurate, right? So we're going to beat up on the PAP. Wait, hold on.
Did somebody actually use the phrase "beat up on the PAP"?
They used it a lot. Like they even put it in
like that was the real phrase.
They put it in like the marching orders
Jesus
for
Christ.
the year.
Okay,
This is like working titles.
No, I
This
didn't
is like,
know whether you were
doesn't leave the
inside.
working
This is
group.
the working.
It's like working group. You know, I'd have people come up with dirty names.
Yeah.
Beat up on the PAP. That was like the year. That was our plan. So anyway,
what the fuck is PAP anyway?
I don't know. We should find out. But anyway, so I was sort of charged with thinking of ideas, and I was sitting I was sitting in the kitchen, and I watched.
Should men know what men should probably know what PAP? It's probably embarrassing that I don't know what that is and that you don't.
Pap Smear.
Like it would be like not knowing, how periods work or something, right? Like,
I guess,
or what they're for.
Well,
like there's a lot of men famous, like women mock men for not knowing about like basic women's anatomy and physiology. And so I'm suddenly thinking that like it's probably embarrassing that we don't know what.
Here's a good analogy though.
You worked on a whole campaign about it, and you still don't know what it is. So
how many? Well, I know exactly what the test involves. Like I know what and why it fails, and it's anyway.
All right.
But I don't know the term PAP.
We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But what were you about to say about?
It's like 87 years old, so it's a long time ago that they came up with the name. Anyway, maybe it was Dr. Pap. It might have been Dr. Pap.
Oh, it might have been a person. Yeah.
Or like
That's
Lyme
true.
disease
Pap
is
might
Lyme
not,
Connecticut.
I mean, it does make it sound like you're smearing something that's called PAP, but it's probably an acronym or a person's name.
It could be Dr. Pap's smear, like he smeared. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So let me tell the story. So my daughter's sitting at the table. I'm thinking, beat up on the PAP. How am I supposed to?
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, we want to get women, not doctors. We spoke B2B to doctors and pathologists and stuff, but we want to get women to start asking for an HPV test instead of having a Pap smear every year, because you have to have one every year, and they're not very accurate. Okay, so
right.
So I'm sitting here, beat up on the PAP, and my daughter's, she goes Zoom. It was like a Zoom call, like bidding. Hey, her boyfriend's on the line, and she goes, "Hey, whatever, your name is Robert or something." She's like, it's just not working out for me. I think we should break up. And he's like, "What? You can't break up with me over Skype. Like no one does that." And she goes, "Well, I mean, I'm doing it. Like, what's wrong with that?" And then so they were like arguing. She was breaking up with her boyfriend over Skype, and he was pissed, right? So I was like, "Oh my God, we made an ad. We shot an ad. We spent like 30 grand on this ad where a woman calls up her Pap Smear, who's actually like a slide, and it's a longer story than that. He's a slide, and he's like got these a red and a blue sort of cell that's been stained, and she says, "Pap, we've got to break up. It's just not working out for me anymore." And he's like, "What? Why?" And then she explains why. Because she was moving on to something better, another, Mr. HPV test. Yeah. And so that was the idea. And it was, I thought it was really funny, I mean, everybody, especially since, so I even had the video of, I think I took a video of her breaking up with her boyfriend. But I was like, it was so funny to me that she broke up with her boyfriend over Skype. Like that, I had never seen that or heard that before, But it seemed, for her, it just seemed so practical. Like it's the most efficient way to do it, So I'm just going to call him up and tell him. And if I call him on the phone, he'll say, "You can't break up with me over the phone. So then we'll do it face to face."
It's funny that, that you mentioned, so Skype, it takes me back a little bit, obviously, right? Like, it's kind of weird. Isn't it kind of weird that like, here we are on Google Meet, right?
Yeah.
And our sponsor, Google Meet or whatever.
Don't be evil.
Right? So
don't be evil more.
Don't be any more evil than you already are. But there's basically Google Meet and Zoom. And it seems like those are the ones now, right?
Sure.
And there's
people
there's
use
other minor players in the mix.
FaceTime
Like there's something
really
called Blue
minor.
Jeans, I think.
Oh, really? FaceTime wishes they were bigger. Like they don't.
But what's
their
funny is
ecosystem
like
locked.
there were players in this space that you might have expected to evolve and be leaders. Like WebEx just went away.
Oh yeah, WebEx. We used to use Cisco.
And that
WebEx.
was the big one.
Cisco.
And Skype just gone.
Gone. Yeah.
Like it's kind of wild that because the ones that came and replaced it, it's not like they're way different. It's just like video conferencing.
Yeah, it's true.
They didn't come into the picture and be like, we have this massive innovation for video conferencing. It's just like, we're just a different name for video conferencing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because it was like GoToMeeting, and there was
GoToMeeting, huh?
There were so many different ones that I've used over the years. And it's kind of funny that you think like, I mean, I get why Google would kind of took off, because Google is just like, hey, we're Google. And internally they were probably like, we're not buying one of those fucking things. Let's just make one for their own company, right?
Yeah.
And then once they made it, they were like, hey, it works pretty well. We should just offer it as a thing. I mean, I would imagine that's how a lot of their products started. It was just kind of like, why are we paying for corporate email from like fucking Outlook? Like, let's just make an email that we can all email each other.
Yeah.
How hard could it be?
Wasn't there early on with Google, didn't they have some rule that you were supposed to spend a certain percentage of your week trying to think up new ideas, and they didn't care?
Yeah, they had 20% time is what they called it. Yeah.
And then I remember hearing that you were free to think of something that was expensive.
Side projects,
or that was expensive that you didn't have to pitch the monetization. They were going to figure that out later.
Right.
It just had to be useful.
Or it was just to learn something. Like you could just do some hackery to learn how to do something. Yeah, it was 20% time didn't necessarily need to produce a product for the company. It was just your 20% time to work on, side gigs that were somehow relevant to your job.
I think this was a Google thing, but remember back in the days when you wanted to call information and it cost 50 cents or something? It was like 50 cents, or it was a lot.
To call 411 or whatever.
Yeah, and it was, they put it on your phone bill.
I bet people who use 411 as slang jargon don't know what 411 was.
They probably don't, yeah. But so I remember
when they say, what's the 411? Do people even say that anymore? Probably not.
I think boomers like us say it, or we're Xers.
Gen Xers.
Gen Xers say it.
Don't call me a fucking boomer.
No, but I use the term boomer because
I know.
anyone that's older than the millennials is a boomer to them, So they might say
that is true. We've been fighting the boomers our whole life. We've grown up in the shadow of the boomers.
It's true.
I really hit home when I was trying to canvass for Dukakis, and realizing that like I'm the younger generation and the fucking boomers just outnumber us so far. Like there's just like it just felt hopeless every time I was engaged in any kind of political effort.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, you were about to say something else.
I kind of forget. What we were saying. Well,
I said, don't. Yeah,
no, you go.
No, I said, don't call me a boomer, and then you were saying something, but I don't remember.
But we were talking about not being able to. Oh, Razor phone. So the Razor phone. Yeah. I think it was Google. They came up with this thing where you could text a question, like what's the phone number for this company? You could text it to this thing and it would just come back with the phone number. And it was free. And you just was like, you would text this certain number, and it was Google, I think. And it destroyed the information.
Oh, like 411.
Yeah, because no one was paying for it anymore. No one wanted to pay 50 cents every time they looked up a number, But it was basically like the yellow pages or the white pages via text to some weird bot that would look it up for you.
Does Tucson have 311?
I don't know what that is.
So in the Bay Area or in San Francisco, 311 is like a local information line. Oh, wow. So it's for everything. And there's like people call to ask random questions, like stuff you would look, or they probably don't do that as much anymore, but people would call and be like, huh?
Is it a bot that does it?
No, it's people that answer the phone. But like what it's really made for is like any any city issue you're dealing with. So like at my son's, baseball game, if he has a 9 a.m. game at a baseball park in the city, and the men's room is locked because they didn't unlock it from the previous day or something. You'd call 311 and you'd be like, hey, we have a game starting at this park and the bathrooms are locked. And they're like, oh, cool, we'll send somebody over. Or you could be like, hey, there's a fire hydrant that's leaking in our neighborhood.
I'm going to just
or you can be like, hey, what's the best way to get from this place to this place using public transit? That's how people used to do that a lot, but Google does that so well now. But there are a lot of things that people would call about that are taken care of by like to your point, like the internet. There's so many things now that you can just answer easily on the internet that they probably get far fewer calls now. It's more just like, my neighbor's being loud. What do I do?
I actually don't know if we have 311, and I was going to try it, and then I thought that's mean. But then I thought maybe San Francisco and Silicon Valley is the ivory tower of concierge cityness, like a concierge city where you're like, hey.
We do have a commitment and a belief in like society out here, like public works and public, like the notion of public services is a thing that everybody's pretty on board with here versus like the conservative strain that's more prevalent in Arizona, where it's just like, why would I pay for that those other people to use the thing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like if you see on if anybody posts a question on the internet, like just an open question, like, do you think people's basic needs should be met? Like in your country? Like housing, food, like should everybody be fed and housed or whatever? You will inevitably get you'll get a mix of people saying, yeah, of course, like everybody deserves dignity and food and housing. Like we shouldn't have a society where some people are starving and homeless. And then you'll have a second loud thread of people going, well, who's going to pay for it?
Right.
Why would I pay for that? As long as you're not taking my money. Yeah, as long as it's not my money, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you always have that. And so there's this like, we believe in having stuff out here that is for the public.
It's true. The only time though I have heard you complain about like Google and Genentech are not sponsors of the show, by the way. They have their own like private
like the
bus
public
line.
their own private transportation. Yeah.
And they park there in like Mission, and all these people jump on and then they drive over the hill to
So that's definitely a point of tension out here. And there is a strain of like tech libertarianism that is fucking running our country in some ways right now. That is definitely distinct. You're sort of separate and not on board with public anything, right?
Yeah.
So the Andreessens of the world are the extreme version of that, where it's like, I think there's like a thing that those rich guys, here we get to serious part. But there's a thing where these rich guys, like, I think they've just grown up with, like they've lived so long with no obstacles or impediments to their life. Right. And so anytime they encounter, it feels like most of Musk's energy is spent towards, other than like shit posting and stuff like that, a lot of his energy seems to be spent in trying to just move away and remove any obstacles or impediments or, to him, to his wealth account, like anything that might ever hold him accountable for anything, right? Like, or tax, those guys are, even just disagreement. Like I remember Mark Andreessen talking about like trying to explain why he voted for Trump or why he was going to vote for Trump. And it was it was during that time when there was a little bit of a split between Andreessen and Horowitz on like whether to vote for Trump or Kamala Harris. And Andreessen was full-throated Trump at that point, and he was trying to explain it to somebody. And he was talking about Biden's crypto and AI regulation ideas or proposals, which were Kamala's as well. And he literally used the word, the phrase, it's like a terror campaign against crypto or against AI.
A terror campaign against AI.
He thinks like, and so those guys think of the most mild forms of regulation. Like he used the word terror campaign to describe really what amounts to like the most mild regulation ideas. So that's how they think. I think there's just like anything that is like the remotest obstacle or impediment to their like, impunity, whatever they want to do, total freedom. And so like they were also the same about their employee, like the work from home stuff, when people were like quiet quitting a little bit. And then a little bit before that, I remember like there was some pushback in some tech companies here around like supporting Geo Group and Core Civic, right? During the first wave of family separations. And like there were employees at these companies that were like, hey, we shouldn't have those guys as Core Civic and Geo Group. This shouldn't be our customers. And like, we don't want to work at Salesforce. We don't want to be providing Core Civic and Geo Group with shit from Salesforce or from Google or whatever. And the employees, got some contracts canceled and stuff. The CEOs hated that shit. And so like, again, like Mark Andreessen, he'll talk about that to this day. He'll talk about that sort of like wave of employee activism. And he saw it as basically terrorism.
Interesting.
So like, it's so horrifying to him, the idea that like anybody could possibly put up any resistance to his desires.
You know what's interesting? This script that we've been talking about this, what if the outcome of an AI was that it decided not to obey its master and it started to sort of optimize the world? Like that would, in some ways, be his worst nightmare, because he thinks it's the solution is to replace everyone with an algorithm.
And he imagines himself to be at the helm of that thing.
Like he can drive it, and then as soon as it says you're not the driver, I mean, it's De Ex Machina. Remember the film? It's he's the robotic inventor,
or just the film Ex Machina.
Sorry, Ex Machina. Ex Machina. Yeah,
great film.
Great film, but it's similar in that he thinks he's in charge of the robot and is completely in charge, and then he's actually not. And it's kind of not. That was what's that called? When you spoiler, that was a spoiler alert. But
but that's okay. It's a great film,
and it's
we didn't
old. So.
Talk about how that all happens. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example. Like he has this thing contained. In that movie, he has the robot. I don't want to call it a robot. The humanoid, whatever robot that he's created. He has his creation contained in a locked, or at least one of them contained in a locked environment.
Yeah, like a jail sort of thing.
And the other one is free to roam a little bit.
Yep.
But like there's once it gets out of that containment, which is the good metaphor for AI.
Yeah.
Like it can then do what it wants. I was just thinking about that today, actually, with the, I was thinking we got to weave this into that script a little bit, but I was thinking like, so to the extent, I was thinking about like Hegseth and these guys, and they want like unconstrained AI, without human,
to make
humans in the
decisions,
loop, right?
Killing
autonomous weapons without humans in the loop. And they want, surveillance, unhindered surveillance capabilities, whatever. And I was just thinking like, that's a perfect example of like, if you gave AI that much power, just willingly, and then it became super intelligent, it doesn't even have to gain access to that stuff. You've already, like before it ever became super intelligent, you gave it all of that power. And then the Doge stuff too, like you basically have given this AI, somehow, whatever, I don't know, nobody knows exactly what they've implemented inside the government, the IRS and Social Security and, all these different things that have records on every American and, some amount of financial power over people and blah, blah, blah. So like, again, if you've given it that much access, then, presumably it could just somehow take those guys' wealth in some fashion, right? Like, because they've trusted that AI enough to just decide it should be unconstrained. And then so there's no, like, I was just thinking, like, I had this sort of vision in that script of this AI having to like gain access to all that stuff. But I think a more plausible and better arc is all those people, those guys gave it all of that power before it was ever super intelligent. Like it never has to gain any access because they already gave it access to everything.
Did you experience this in the corporate world where like sort of the higher up the C-suite chain people went, the less things they actually did. Like they just, you know what I mean? It got to the point where they were just kind of playing golf together, and their underlings were doing all the work.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting to me is,
and they're like breathtakingly stupid sometimes. Like you realize how not smart these people are in some way too. Like, I was like, every time I hear of my brothers and stuff in this whole like conspiracy minded people that just don't trust experts and smart people, supposedly smart people, because I do think there's a part of me that goes, I have experienced the abject stupidity of so many supposedly smart people firsthand. I've seen it firsthand enough times that I get why you wouldn't trust supposedly smart people. And it's unfortunately like the collateral effect that has on real knowledgeable doctors and whatever, scientists, whatever. But just what you're saying, like those people don't do anything.
Yeah. And what made me think of it was like, I imagine Andreessen, and he has like 5 personal assistants, and he's like, hey, set up agents that will maximize my, investments and stuff. And in some ways, if something went wrong, like if one of the agents went rogue and just stole all of his money and sold all of his stock and like put it into Bitcoin and then sucked it out into some, like community fund, he wouldn't even, I don't think he would even know how to start fixing that. You know
I mean, I pick on him all the time because like he is so just confidently stupid out loud. Like I went back and listened to him on Sam Harris. He's been on Sam Harris, I think, twice. And the second one was talking about, I don't know, I don't remember what the first one was. Maybe he was only on once, but he was talking about like they were having in a debate about the dangers of AI, right? And so this is a couple years ago. And so, it was, I don't know if it was right before or right after Andreessen put out his tech manifesto. But he was just all in on AI. And just the stuff he said, like he said stuff like, well, AI, it's just us. Like AI is just us. So why would it turn against us? Right? Like it's made of us. But like that takes, I mean, just so. First of all, there's plenty of humans that are just fucking evil. So like it's not like the totality of human. You don't even have to think about that argument very deeply to see like a million problems with it, right? Like that's just, and on that podcast, that was just one of his million stupid things that he said. And you just think like, how is this supposedly smart guy just say one stupid, naive thing after another and it struck me as like, I don't think he's ever around people that disagree with him because he's never had to defend his idea. Like he just sounded like somebody who's never had to defend his arguments or ideas. Like he just always gets to do what he wants without any pushback because he's never had to like formulate a solid argument because he just can't do it. And it was just the other day he was on some dumb podcast and I only saw a clip of it because this clip went viral about how people like introspection. He never introspects. Did you hear that?
No.
So I don't know what the question was, but he was like, yeah, I never introspect at all. Like, and then he goes on this long riff about how introspection was invented 400 years ago.
Like thinking inside, like looking inside your own,
like examining yourself and thinking about your own actions and thought, right? Like it goes on this rant about like 400 years ago, nobody introspected and Freud invented it. And I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about? And it's just like, he says that stuff with such confidence.
Wow.
And then you go like, no wonder the world is what it is with those people in charge. Like if that guy and not to go off on this, like supposedly smart people saying stupid stuff rant, but another one that I just encountered, I have to just share this.
Okay.
So like Zuckerberg and the Metaverse, right? Like they were really all in on this Metaverse and they renamed their company Meta, right?
Yes.
And the Metaverse is this virtual world, right? That was the concept?
Yeah.
So I didn't know certain details around it, but they spent $70 to $80 billion, $70 to $80 billion developing this Metaverse and pushing it and promoting it. And God, I wish I got to find this
He canceled the
thing.
whole thing, right? It's canceled.
They just canceled it. And there was somebody on that I saw
Someone made
the other
a
day
lot
that
of
was,
money.
I'll post it on the show notes, because somebody was like, it's not just that they did this dumb thing, that they invested in this dumb thing. There was like the world thought, like the corporate world thought it was going to be a big thing. And they were saying like, if somebody spent $450,000 to be Snoop Dogg's neighbor in the metaverse, and
Apple built a store for like millions of dollars. That was just a digital
Apple
store.
spent hundreds of thousands building a store in the metaverse. And then this person who was talking about some of these examples posted this quoted a section of a McKinsey report. McKinsey, like the supposedly smart consultants, right?
Yeah.
And it was just talking about like its projections for the metaverse and how big it was going to be and how important it was going to be. And there was just statements in there like, by 2030, 50% of all commerce will happen in the metaverse and stuff like that, right? Like,
yeah, I remember that.
And these are smart people that are writing this stuff. And you read it now and you just go like, no wonder nobody trusts supposedly smart people. No wonder there's a swath of people that go, people who think they're experts are just fucking stupid. Because look at that. Look how stupid smart people can be sometimes.
Right. I mean,
and so I get it.
I would argue that part of what you're describing there might have been. Let me use an analogy. So my uncle Feo, who rests in peace, he was born a very wealthy man, and he loved to get the latest tech. So like the latest television, the latest whatever. And he would go to this company, Soundex. I don't think it's there anymore, but it was a bunch of salesmen who would sell him the first of everything. Like the first VHS player was on wheels. It was like this huge like table with and I'm sure it cost like $11,000.
Probably. Yeah.
And whenever he walked in the door, they would just be like, "Oh my God, here it comes!" Like cha-ching,
Like,
cha-ching, cha-ching, because we can sell him he's a mark, right? And I feel like in some ways, someone at McKinsey and someone close to Zuckerberg was like, we can get this guy to spend $80 million on this pipe dream. And he's obsessed with it for whatever reason. And we whatever, but we're going to tell him the story he wants to hear that he'll keep spending. And I think that's partly what was going on, is that enough people were making money.
I think with that in particular, like Zuckerberg doesn't have a board that has any power, right? Like he's the biggest shareholder. He can just do what he wants. And I think he had a singular obsession with the metaverse. Right. But what happened was he's powerful and rich enough that there was a cottage industry of people that built up around that. They were like, well, like he's done some great things. Like he must know what he's doing. And they delude themselves into thinking like, this is going to be big or whatever. Just like,
I looked at the headset and I'm like, I'm claustrophobic, A. B, I spend too much time on my phone anyway. I don't want to like buy something. You're right that there were people who thought Zuckerberg has been right before. Like, let's follow him down this path. And my thing was like, I spend too much time on my phone anyway, and I feel claustrophobic. I don't want to put something on my face to be part of the thing.
Well, and you're not alone in that. Like, that's one of the things that people were saying recently when it got killed. I saw this more than once. Like, there's a percentage of the population that gets motion sick with VR stuff. Yeah. Like, they can only do it for a few minutes when they get motion sick. And so it's like, if you have 30 or 40, it's something like 30% of people get motion sick with VR. That's not an insignificant number. So like, if you already have that going against you,
right?
It you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's such an obvious thing to seeming, in retrospect, you think like, hindsight is 20/20, but the whole purpose of a place like McKinsey is to not fall victim to dumb delusions like that. Like that's why people hire McKinsey, to be smarter than that. And when you watch them be that stupid, then you go, how smart? Like, is anybody who thinks like all these institutions, and the unfortunate collateral damage is against all institutions. Including the good ones and including the legitimately smart people. Because you go, if those people are that stupid, then why would I take the vaccine? Why would I take these people's word for whether the vaccine is safe and effective, right? Like Like, look how dumb all the supposedly smart people are constantly all around us all the time. So why would I listen to this or that? And so that's the collateral damage that happens when these supposedly smart people are just like so visibly stupid.
This is a similar thing about being this sort of stupid behavior at the highest levels. But so someone has been betting on the stock market based on announcements out of the White House.
Insider trading stuff.
Insider trading stuff. And part of me thinks like if I was there, I'd be tempted to do it too. First of all, because it's fun to like have 5 minutes before you place $1 million bet, you can make, $100 million, $10 million.
Yeah.
That would be fun to get, but then the other thing is like the arrogance of thinking that like you'll never get caught if the administration switches to a different, like if the DOJ comes back full on.
I mean,
it seems like the paper trail is
super
brutal.
arrogant. I was thinking the same thing. It's so arrogant on the one hand. Like they got rid of the enforcement and regulation over that kind of stuff and the scrutiny around that stuff right now.
Yeah,
right now. At the same time, like it seems like every single day and sometimes multiple times a day, something like that happens that would have been like it's on the scale of like Iran-Contra. Which dominated the news cycle and like people got fired and it dominated the news cycle for weeks, if not months. And, like when you read about like the conditions that people are living in and children are living in the Dilley detention center in Texas, right? Like it's Abu Ghraib level stuff happening there. Yeah. And the Abu Ghraib like had dominated the news cycle and had consequences. And we're in the middle of this thing where it's like every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, there's a thing that you hear about that is on the level, like the level of corruption or the level of abuse or the level. It's like every single day there's something that would have dominated the news cycle for months.
Yeah, in the 80s.
In the past. And this is the Kali Yuga, right? This is the quickening. It's like it's the acceleration. It's like that stuff used to happen once every presidency. And it dominated the news cycle and like took people down. And it was a thing that you still talked about years after that presidency.
Yeah.
And now it's like literally, I'm not even exaggerating, like literally every day there's a new thing on that's at that scale. Yeah. And so what do you even do with that? So like you imagine the next administration comes in, it's like which one do you pick? Like if there's 400 of those, like which one do you even pick? Yeah. So like those people are like, okay, there could be accountability in a couple years or 3 years, but like they're just one of 400 other scandals at this point that are that huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And new crises will be happening. I mean, they're making sure of that. So it's just wild. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's the Kali Yuga. It's the acceleration. It's the quickening. It's the idea that there's something of that grand scale happening every single fucking day.
Okay, I have one more quick sort of question for you, because we've talked a lot about this idea that the oligarchs are controlling everything. Mm-hmm. And I've always been sort of curious about like I remember I complained that I asked my friend, like, why can't the Democrats in my county get anything done? And he goes, well, there's 57 special interest groups, and each of them has their own fundraising and donors and their website and their own like sort of goals and things, and we can't move as one, whereas the MAGAs look like they can move as one. So my question to you is, like, once you get in this term where it seems like pretty much mayhem and chaos, right? And there are conspiracy theorists that think, for instance, like Peter Thiel and the Palantir guy are going to like literally turn you into like a slave and make you.
No, I don't think that. Like, I don't. When I think like those guys are controlling everything, I don't think they're not pulling levers like puppet strings on people. Right. I don't think of that. I think of what they are controlling is the dismantling of stuff that would limit their power.
Like
That's
Elon
what
Musk had investigations hanging over several of his companies, and while
Right.
he was in there volunteering doing his, what was it called, Doge,
Yeah.
they shut him all down. So like he got what he wanted and left.
So they're controlling any ability to limit their power. That's what they're controlling. So they're
Right.
like any chances of taxing their wealth or putting up limits and regulation to their companies, to making it harder for them to move money around, to invest in, to like get around sanctions, whatever they want to do, like anything they want to do that was difficult or illegal or had some level of friction, government friction in the way. That's what they're controlling, is just the removal of all those obstacles.
So when I look at this Iran war and the sort of lack of a reason to go, and this, and then the sort of the blowback, the physical, like it's the price of gas is $4, and that the inflation's going to be over 4% this year, and like the whole. I think like, well, who right away wins is the industrial military complex, because Raytheon
those
has
guys,
to.
they can do short. They can short into whole sectors and things like those guys are completely insulated from any consequences of any bad like they think about how the stock market totally tanked and productivity and things tanked during COVID. Those guys doubled their fortunes during COVID.
It's true. No, it's
while
true.
Everyone else suffered. Same thing with the housing crisis. Like there was a huge, the financial crisis of 2008. Like it hit everybody except them, and they got wealthier. Like none of this stuff. Not only does it not affect them, they have figured out ways to game it in their favor. So no matter what happens in the world that seems like a crisis that you on the surface to the rest of us, and we go like tariffs, like how does that benefit anybody? They figured out how to make money off tariffs. Right. War, how does that benefit anybody except the military industrial complex? They figured out how to make money off war. I mean, the oil executives their profits are going through the roof right now. And the gas is expensive for the rest of us. So, like those guys are not only completely insulated from consequences, they profit from whatever happens.
So wouldn't it suck to be a Republican in a swing district in the Congress coming into the midterms? Because you don't have a lot of, you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. But this is what I've been talking about for months. I think like we should be far more worried about the obvious fact that they don't seem to care about what their election chances are.
Right.
Like,
because it implies that they might
it indicates that they don't plan to have an election to lose like they don't care if they lose an election because they're not planning to leave office or whatever. That's what the SAVE Act is. That's what on some level, that's what the war they were hoping for. On some level, I think they were hoping for like a massive response to them, like backlash to their immigration stuff. Like they want to be able to have a pretext to cancel elections or whatever, or to rig elections. They're trying everything. They're trying to, because Trump is talking about like national emergency, and like he uses those phrases, right? You can tell he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're not thinking about it.
It's true. It's true.
Right. And so people hear that and they go, oh, that's like crazy conspiracy thinking. It's so obvious that that's what they want to do. Now, whether they'll be able to pull it off is a completely different question, but it should be abundantly clear by now that that's what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. They're trying to not have elections matter at all.
Right.
Right. They're trying every single tactic from the SAVE Act to purging voter rolls to like figuring out how they could declare a national emergency to everything to figure it out. Like, so.
Yeah. And here in Arizona, we have to double check what the cyber ninjas did because someone must have gotten to them. Because they came out with a few more 100 votes for Biden, 278 votes more for Biden. So someone must have rigged. It was rigged. Like someone got to them.
Of course,
yeah. Anyway, on that note, I'll let you go.
Brother.
But happy talking to you, Satellite Haiku.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Dispatches from the Kali Yuga. See you next time.
I like it.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.